girl in town. She's spicy, she's a little sweet, she goes great with coffee. Her name is Speculoos. She is a Biscoff cookie. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that word, but whatever, that is what you'll know her as. The perfect combination of just enough spice to feel like you're being warmed from the inside out and give it a little bit more of a adult sophistication than like an average sugar cookie, but so much yummy caramelizing sugar essence happening at the same time to really feel like you're treating yourself is what makes the perfect Speculoos cookie so alluring. And we're gonna make one today. You could be convinced that they are just like a simple sugar cookie or like a gingersnap kind of stand-in. They're not. It turns out that Speculoos cookies are about a perfect balance of enough spices, but not so much that it's a gingersnap and not so much that it is overwhelmed by like chai infusion, with a balance of white and brown sugar. Now, I will say you can make this recipe using just regular light brown sugar, but if you want to go the extra mile, you are going to order yourself on the internet or find at a specialty store something called soft Belgian Kandi Sugar. This is a really soft and beautiful light brown sugar that looks like so. It is actually what is frequently used in Belgium to make their delicious beers, if you are a fan of those. It's very soft, very sweet. It has more of a caramel essence to it than American brown sugar, which is more like molasses notes. Both work great, but this is the authentic place to start. The only other sort of special ingredient for this cookie that you might not already have in your pantry is Ceylon cinnamon. Regular cinnamon obviously has that rich color, very rich, robust taste. Ceylon cinnamon's a bit milder, a bit lighter, both in color and in flavor, a bit sweeter overall. Again, it is that balance of not too spicy, but a little bit of spice coming through, plus sweetness, that gives you the divine crunch and crisp of a Speculoos cookie that you are gonna want to dunk into a mug of Earl Grey tea with cream or a perfect coffee or nibble on for 4 p.m. snacks. Let's get started by putting together our dry mix. The first thing we want is a 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You know the drill. You don't want to overpack your flour. Just lightly fill the cup and then use a knife or your finger to scrape off the excess. And perfect. Next up, we want to grab some baking soda, just a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm assuming you have eaten these delicious cookies before, so you'll know that they're not puffy or chewy. They're really thin and delicate and crisp. So we're not looking for a lot of rising action, which is why we're just going to use this 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and a little pinch of salt, just like so. And now we get to start with our spice blends. So big forefront note in this mix is going to be our Ceylon cinnamon. If you are going to use regular cinnamon, that'll be fine. We're gonna want probably 2.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. And if you overmeasure just a little bit, that's okay. Next up in my book is going to be cardamom. I'm gonna go for a 1/2 teaspoon of cardamom, and that way we don't overpower that wonderful cinnamon flavor, but my queen of spices is still lovely and heady and present. Then you can do pretty much whatever ratio you want of the other mix in here, which is going to be some nutmeg. I would say like a 1/4 teaspoon, which can have a tendency to be a little overwhelming in its flavor palette. Let's say a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger too. Again, I'm not looking to make a ginger snap. Ginger snaps are lovely. We love them, but that's not what we're making today. I did nutmeg, I did cardamom, I did ginger, I didn't do cloves. Cloves are dangerous, guys. Dangerous as in they can change the flavor palette very quickly. So just a few little sprinkles of cloves. And now grab your whisk, blend it all together, and set that aside. Next up, we are gonna get started on our creaming butter and sugar together. I just want 1 stick of butter, so I'm going to try to evenly split my double. Our butter is lovely and room temperature, which means it will cream together easily. We want a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. That goes into our bowl. And a 1/2 cup packed of our Belgian Kandi Sugar. Again, if you are gonna use light brown sugar, the flavor will be slightly different, but still very delicious. Okay, butter, sugars together. We're going to beat it on medium-high for about 4 minutes until the butter is light and fluffy, the sugars have been emulsified, and then we will continue creating our batter. You can see the butter's really lovely and fluffy. All the grains of sugars have been encapsulated, enrobed in a little bit of the butter fat. Now we are going to add just 1 room temperature egg. We'll just beat this together 15 seconds. And having the egg be room temperature is really important. You can see how luscious and smooth the batter stays. If your egg were cold, it could have the butter seize up and things like that, or have the batter separate. We don't want that. Take a spatula. Another step that sometimes you think you can gloss over in the recipe, but it's actually important, is to scrape down the bowl, because you want to make sure that any little bits of the egg in particular that might have gotten stuck to the sides of the bowl get incorporated into the batter. So give it a quick scrape down. Plus it has the added benefit of giving you something to taste. Delicious. Add a little splash of vanilla extract now, probably a little bit more than a teaspoon, and 15 seconds more, and then we're good. All that's left to do is add our dry mix in 3 parts, and I'm just doing that to make sure that the batter doesn't get lumpy. I want everything smoothly incorporated. I don't want to have to overbeat this mix. Once everything is combined, I will stop mixing, and that is going to leave us the most tender little snap cookie. So roughly 1/3 of our dry mix going in. Ooh, I smell that cinnamon, I smell that cardamom. Right when the batter combines is when you're gonna add your next 1/3 of the dry mix. So again, final 1/3 going in. Right when the dough is fully formed like it is here, I'm gonna count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to turn off my beaters. I do that final 5 just to make sure it's fully incorporated and give it like a moment to develop a little bit of chew to it, but you're developing the gluten strand, so you don't want to do it too much or you risk having tough cookies, which we don't love. Now that our batter is fully formed and delicious, we are going to take plastic wrap or wax paper and divide it into 2 square discs to set up in the fridge at least an hour. You can definitely make this the day ahead and let it go overnight, which is great. We want the butter to cool again so that we have a dough we can roll. We're gonna roll it out to about 1/4 inch thick before we cut a lovely shape from our dough to start to form the cookies we all know and love. To form it, just go ahead and use your parchment paper or plastic wrap or wax paper to kind of just squish it down, and you just are giving yourself a little bit of a head start when it comes time to roll the dough. So roughly there, looks good. Go ahead and continue to press it down. I'm making mine probably about 1 inch thick. Set you to the side. You can always sort of fill into the square now. Lovely. These are going to go in the fridge, and I will see you in an hour. So these were in the fridge about an hour. I took them out 10 minutes ago just to let them soften a little bit so I can roll them easily. In addition to giving the butter time to harden up again so we can roll the dough out without it sticking to the surface of our countertop, the time in the fridge actually is really important for letting the gluten relax. So we did work it with the stand mixer or hand mixer. You want to give that gluten a second just to regain its composure. I floured my board and my rolling pin. Go ahead and remove your lovely little flat square of dough. And we're just going to roll this out probably 1/4 inch thick. Now, if you are so lucky as to have a traditional Speculoos, either imprinted rolling pin or mold, like a traditional wooden mold, then you can press this dough right into it, or you can use that rolling pin to press the shapes into it. We are going to just be using a ravioli cutter. Non-traditional, but yields beautiful and delicious, decorative enough, but very simplified results. Something I found kind of funny in doing my research on the origin of Speculoos cookies is that Speculoos is from the Latin speculum, meaning mirror, which we guess makes sense. Comes from the fact that traditionally these cookies are pressed using a mold that's sort of the mirror image of the cookie that eventually shows up. For your next appearance on Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, or, you know, you're like showing up your family at Trivial Pursuit. Now you know. A 1/4 inch thick across, that looks right. That looks real nice to me. Okay, now get your ravioli cutter. Ooh, I have 2 options. I could go uniform and square, or I could go freeform and rectagonal. You know, let's do this batch with my squares and then see how that goes. You're gonna wanna work quickly just because this dough is soft and very buttery. Like I said, it's sort of a mix between a shortbread and a gingerbread cookie. Lots of butter in this dough by ratios, so it will soften up really fast, and therefore you want to work quickly to get it onto our parchment-lined baking sheet. And always just, if you find your dough is sticking, just go ahead and tap your little cutter into the flour next to it. These cookies are not going to rise very much, as we talked about, so you don't need to worry about leaving too much space between them on the cookie tray. And I should be able to eke one more perfect square out of this section. I'm a big fan of re-rolling my dough a maximum of 2 times. I think beyond that, you start getting a very tough result, so buyer beware. Into a 350-degree oven. They're gonna get really golden and crispy. The smell is going to be spiced and holiday and perfect. You'll know when it's ready. Okay, all right, let's make some more cookies. So if you're using a ravioli cutter, you're literally gonna go in strips down the length of your dough, which, yes, is as cathartic and fun as it looks. And then, you know, if you really want to get persnickety about it, you can give yourself some beautifully trimmed edges to make perfectly uniform rectangle shapes. And then these ones will be little bite-sized cuties. And these ones will be, this one is going to be fine. Another thing I love about this dough, there's very little waste going on here. We're going to use basically every last bite, even the scraps. I don't know anyone who would say no to a scrap speculoos cookie. Get yourself some parchment paper just to make lift off that much easier. And let's quickly get these onto our tray and pop them in the oven. Look at that pretty fluted edge. And you can see how wonderfully thin the dough is, very tender, and that's gonna give us a super crispy, crunchy, caramelized, delicious result. So while the cookies are finishing up, I'm gonna make a little tea, a little Earl Grey. I'm gonna put a splash of cream in it. The scent in this kitchen right now, you guys, is truly out of this world. Cookies should be ready now. If my nose does not deceive me, the caramel essence is right at that perfect point. And voila! Speculoos wonder. Now the only thing left to do is to wait patiently while these cool on the baking sheet. And the reason that is important, because you know me, I'm never gonna opt to wait if I don't have to. The reason that is important is the cooling process, staying on the hot surface plus the cooling process is going to finish cooking and crisping these off so they get that incredible snap crunch that we're after. So we wait. We waited like 5 minutes, maybe a little longer, but I just need you to see how crisp and tender this cookie is. Let's snap it. They're not cool enough yet. Okay, fine, we're gonna let them continue to cool because there's just a tender bit of chew left in here that we're gonna allow to fully cool, and then it will be crunchy. But honestly, when something is truly like as delightful as I find Speculoos cookies to be, and then you make it at home and it's all yours and it's this good. It's just, we gotta celebrate those moments, you know? There she is. made from scratch. Perfect for your holiday table, perfect for your holiday gifting, perfect for you alone to enjoy.